is Betty Yee. Maybe you have never heard of her. She's polling fairly low, and so it would make sense that many people don't really know who she is. Because she is first and foremost an accountant, she believes in fiscal accountability and financial responsibility. And so that while she touts wanting financial accountability, she then turns around and she supports many of the mainstream Democrat policies that just require higher taxes, more government spending, and often lead to the programs that then waste taxpayer money. So, for example, on housing, she wants to tackle the affordability crisis by implementing further rent control and more government subsidies, going to lead to higher government spending. Additionally, when it comes to healthcare, she is in support of the idea of a single payer system. That's where one payer pays for healthcare for all. And so in our government, that would be that the government pays for healthcare, aka universal healthcare, which interestingly enough, when this was actually seriously examined for California back in 2017, it was estimated to cost $400 billion per year, which at the time was more than double the entire state budget. So again, interesting that someone who wants financial responsibility would also support an initiative that would cost double the state's budget.
Let's talk about the unsuccessful cop who's currently running for governor of California. He has the worst crime-solving rate all in California, even though he is the highest paid sheriff in the state. His salary increases are so extravagant that he makes more than Gavin Newsom. In his first 6 years of office, his deputies only cleared 9.2% of reported crimes, which is dead last in all of California's 57 sheriff departments. In 2023, his office was placed under investigation by the California DOJ for excessive force and misconduct in jails. Now let's talk about all the lawsuits. Remember when California got Prop 50, which shifted House seats to more favorable districts towards Democrats, which was entirely legal, and also Texas did it first? Well, the cop didn't believe it because of course he didn't, and he ordered his deputies to seize over 600,000 ballots to get recounted. So the UCLA Voters' Rights Project filed a lawsuit to shut it down because what are you doing? And he's also had to defend multiple lawsuits by families of inmates in jail for medical malpractice, negligence, and wrongful death. Not exactly a winning contender, even for MAGA.
A superintendent of public instruction really doesn't do him any favors with his track record on how he would actually lead a state, because public education in California is absolutely terrible by pretty much every metric and has only gotten worse in the years that he has been in charge of it. So there are studies that show that in the 2021 to 2022 school year, that math and English language proficiency were only proven for under half of students in our state. So under 50% of students in California test to be proficient in the most basic subjects of math and English. That's a complete failure. Those are two subjects that every child should learn the basics of. Additionally, California ranks in the bottom half of states by K through 12 test scores.
The controversial bill prohibits California school districts from notifying parents about a student's desire to change sexual orientation or gender identity.
Actually, it does nothing to block the rights of parents. It actually says that when there are any discussions that are going to take place about a child's sexual orientation, that conversation should happen between that child and their parent. We don't want government involved in making decisions about our children. Is that something that you'd want to see? I know you're going to speak against this matter, but actually what it does is it protects young people from being forcibly outed. And research shows that when you target LGBTQ plus students in this way, you propel them towards suicide. 40% of LGBTQ plus kids are experiencing or considering suicide. But when you do the opposite and you support them, they do better in school, they have better attendance, and it is just a misnomer for those who have said that this takes away parent rights. This actually reaffirms the rights that parents and their families should have to work on these issues together.
I ask you to consider this, that nearly half of students who identify as being LGBTQ plus are considering suicide. I ask you to consider this, that the policy that you consider tonight not only may fall outside of the laws that respect privacy and safety for our students, but may put our students at risk because they may not be in homes where they can be safe.
Time. I am going to do a point of order, which I learned from a previous board president. Tony Thurman, I appreciate you being here tremendously, but here's the problem. We're here because of people like you. You're in Sacramento proposing things that pervert children. You had a chance to come and talk to me, Tony. By all means, you had a chance to come talk to me. Why was it so important for you to walk with my opponent? You are the very reason why we're in this. You'll not bully us here in Chino. Please see.
Sheriff Bianco, I know you have a very different perspective on this.
Yes, I mean, since he took over this position, talking about mental health, 70% increase in mental health issues in high school, or I mean in school-aged children. I can't lie as a cop. There's only one of us here that can do that. This bill is absolutely horrible. This bill is absolutely horrible, and it certainly takes away the rights of teachers to inform parents. And what it does is it prevents school districts from having their own rules and laws of saying that teachers will notify parents or that a teacher can notify a parent. This took away that ability for schools to do that in the event we come up with a policy that says you can no longer talk to the students. This is an end-around, ridiculous law. There is no parent in the state that supports this.
Xavier Becerra. And you may have heard his name. Maybe you don't know exactly who he is. When he was Attorney General for California, he likes to tout that he sued Trump 122 times. And so he sees that as a very positive trait for Californians. He was deeply entrenched in things like the Affordable Care Act and in lowering the costs of expensive drugs. And his track record really speaks for itself. And the main problem is that his tenure in HHS was widely regarded as a failure. And that wasn't just by Republicans, it was also by Democrats. So a lot of the news media that was covering him was relentlessly negative. There were open conversations that the White House was discussing replacing him because of how he was handling the COVID pandemic. There was one Democratic commentator who even argued he only got the job because he's Hispanic and that the White House had some PR issues with the Hispanic community at the time. Now, specifically, what were some of those failures? Well, one of the biggest ones is that he didn't really take leadership to stop fraud from being perpetuated as a result of COVID. And so there were a lot of misallocation and misuse of COVID funds, with it being said that it was, quote, the biggest taxpayer fraud in California's entire history.
Xavier Becerra, who was brought up in the federal indictment of Governor Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, not accused of wrongdoing, but unknowingly had funds from a dormant campaign account siphoned to some of his closest allies, to which he responded,
"We're still a month and a half from the election and sleaze politics doesn't have a place." That sounds more like the MAGA talking points.
It's time to talk about Tom Steyer.
I think that people have come to really appreciate how Gavin has stood up.
You won't give us a grade. You won't grade him?
No, I haven't followed it closely enough to give him a grade.
So that's Tom Steyer, billionaire running for governor, has spent about $67 million of his own money so far, and he can't grade the man who's been running this state for the last 8 years. Now,
there have been quite a few controversies about some of the things that his hedge fund made money off of. Coal mining companies that Fairland had invested in had increased their coal production by 70 million tons annually. Steyer had remained invested in the Maules Creek coal mine even after he said that he had divested. Fairlawn also invested in different fossil fuel projects, including an Australian coal mine that denuded thousands of acres of koala habitat, purchased nearly $90 million of Corrections Corporation of America stock. That company, now known as CoreCivic, operates private prisons around the nation that are housing people picked up by federal immigration agents. Tom Steyer raised money for Hillary Clinton. He contributed around $87 million in funds exclusively to Democratic Party candidates during the 2016 election. Steyer spent approximately $10 million just advocating for the impeachment of Donald Trump.
I'm not letting California get cooked. I don't know who the fuck this old ass man is coming out of nowhere, the leading Democrat now for the California governor race. ICE is a criminal organization, and when I'm governor, I'm gonna prosecute them as such. You're not, old man. You're not gonna do shit. Let's talk about how you invested $90 million into CoreCivic, which is a private prison company. And guess what? Guess what they do? DHS uses those places as a detention center. So it looks like you do like ICE, huh? I'm not doing this. I'm not going from Newsom, that guy. And then I thought that we got rid of the naked mole rat, and I was so excited because he's probably going to go to prison now. And then Katie Porter, she really thought she was going to be up here, and she thought the Ozempic was going to work. It didn't.
Katie Porter. She's a hypocrite, and she's a hypocrite on pretty much every area that you need to know about. So just looking at housing, she has made housing affordability a central theme of her governance of every term that she has served in Congress. She likes to talk about affordability in general, of people having to pay for the cost of things. And she likes to say that politicians are out of touch, that a lot of people, especially people in the pharmaceutical industry, they are out of touch with what real people have to go through. And she is a real person. She understands it. But she purchased a home in UC Irvine's exclusive faculty community because she was a professor there. And she purchased her home for $523,000. Now, if you know anything about Irvine, that might surprise you a little bit because a 4-bedroom house, which this was, doesn't sound like it should be $500,000. That's because the median home price in Irvine is actually $1.3 million. How did she get her home for so much less money, you might ask? Well, this community was specifically designed for faculty who work at the university who couldn't afford to buy a home or live in the area because Irvine is so expensive. But here's the caveat. You must be employed for full-time employment at the university in order to be eligible to live there. So you can only pay the subsidized prices or the subsidized mortgage as long as you are employed full-time. But Katie Porter was elected to Congress in 2018. But she's lived there ever since, and she has paid the subsidized housing costs ever since. So there's kind of this controversy that surrounds her ethics, her character, her transparency, as someone who, again, likes to say she understands that things are really expensive and that a lot of politicians are out of touch. And then yet she has abused some sort of a loophole to get special benefits that actually only benefit her.
Former Democratic Congresswoman Katie Porter nearly walked out when correspondent Julie Watts asked about redistricting and what Porter would say to the 40% of Californians who voted for President Trump.
We've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters. Okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered.
I don't care.
Follow-ups.
I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation, which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Ms.
And
Porter,
we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never
reporter.
had to do this before, ever.
You've never had to have a conversation with
to end an interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of I'm me? I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make...
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
To air pollution and other problems, and the state could lose. Get out of my shot.
Katie Porter's campaign for California governor is going viral, but probably not the way she would have hoped. This video shows her lashing out at a former staffer.
And there's this wild story that she poured boiling mashed potatoes on his head during one of their arguments. Now, obviously, divorce is messy, and so both sides are going to have their own problems and contentions against one another, but his stories seem to fit a pattern that has been exposed by her former staff, as well as been exposed by news media outlets for years at this point, so it just kind of fits in the narrative.
Former California Congressman and gubernatorial candidate Eric Swalwell's campaign suspension. The remaining 9 candidates, 7 Democrats, 2 Republicans, hoping to seize the moment, some taking direct jabs at others for having quote-unquote baggage.
Are you saying, Mr. Mayor, that the Democrats need to consolidate behind a candidate that doesn't have baggage?
The candidates need to consolidate around a candidate that doesn't have a scandal.
I am the only candidate in this race without significant personal baggage.
And billionaire and climate activist Tom Steyer recently in the spotlight for formerly investing into a private prison company. He responded,
You know, my whole job on this is not to be a pundit and think about the race. My job is to do exactly what I said, which is to see as many Californians face to face, listen to their story, and make sure I'm talking about them and the issues that confront them.
I've been an open book. I don't hide anything. Anybody can say that I've been in a scandal.
I think people now need to take a second look at all the candidates.